Hey everybody, and welcome to the Rubbin' is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. I'm your host, Sean Big Papa Williams. As you can see, I'm here without Lear. He got emergency deployed this week with his job. He'll be back next week, but I have his picks and mine and all our analysis for you as usual for this week's the Axalta We Paint Winners 400 at Pocono Raceway. But before we get into the analysis for this week's race, let's recap last week's race. And last week, as you probably know from following the standings, Lear's team cashed. It was a great lineup. He did a remarkable job putting together his lineup. Props to him. Then there was my lineup. And the best way to describe my lineup would be dumpster fire. I got utterly destroyed, humiliated. See, that's what happens when 3 of your drivers get into wrecks and all produce you negative points. But this is an important lesson for those of us that play daily fantasy sports to learn. It can teach us 2 good lessons here. The first is bankroll management, right? Like, you need to know how much money you are comfortable losing in a given week. And as I try to tell all fantasy players, if you're not comfortable with the prospect of losing that money, then you shouldn't be playing. It's the same way when you invest in the stock market or anything else. If you're not comfortable with the chance that you're going to lose that money, then don't play it. And because the scoring's new in NASCAR and this is a new sport, I've limited my exposure, and thankfully so, as I came in dead last for the first time ever in the history of me playing daily fantasy sports in a contest last week. I really wish Lear was here to give me more crap about this. I totally deserve it. The second lesson that you learn from this is is something that took me a while in the daily fantasy sports landscape to understand. And that is, no matter how much work you put in and how well thought out your picks are, sometimes they just don't pan out. And instead of beating yourself up about it or trying to go back and be like, well, maybe I should have picked this guy, you just have to realize that that week's over. You're going to start anew next week and start with that clean slate and go after it again. It's important to keep that mindset in daily fantasy sports because even the best players in the world have nights where they just whiff. And if you don't believe me, all you have to do is enter a few contests over on DraftKings or FanDuel and watch some of the biggest players in the world play daily fantasy. They do crush, but sometimes they have bad nights. And they learn to get over it just like I'm sure you will, and just like I've learned to get over it as well. But now that we've got the recap from last week taken care of, let's move along to the breakdown of this week's Axalta We Paint Winners 400 at Pocono Raceway. Since Lear's not here to give you the weather report and the track breakdown, I'll be doing that as well. Pocono is in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. The weather is 71 degrees for the race tomorrow, with partly cloudy. This racetrack offers 3 unique turns that are completely different. That's completely different than any other course. Basically, it's a road-style turn, a normal, the tunnel turn, and then your other standard turn. And essentially, what's causing the drivers problems this week is when they resurfaced this track a few years ago, the tunnel turn has gotten more and more bumpy every year. And with the inclement weather in Pennsylvania this past winter, the bumps have gotten even worse. And we've seen a number of the top drivers complaining about how bad the tunnel turn is. So just keep that in mind when you're putting together your race teams this week. There may be issues in the tunnel turn, and that may cause wrecks. You know, just do your best to try to fade the wrecks. Hopefully you don't end up on the bad end of that stick like I did last week and have 3 of your drivers go negative. But now that we got the weather and the track situation taken care of, let's move right along to the Who's Burning Rubber segment. And here during the Who's Burning Rubber segment and during the lineup selection, I will be giving you Lear's picks and suggestions and his analysis as well as my own. The first pick I have for you in the Burning Rubber section, and this is mine, but before we get there, I just want to clarify, Harvick and Johnson are always in play, but I mean, how much fun is it to talk about the same 2 guys every week? They're dominating the sport. They just know that they go out and they score a lot of points. They're very good at what they do. but I'm sick and tired of talking about the two of them. So I'm going to give you drivers, and Lear's is going to give you his picks that are that differ from the top two. The first pick I have for you this week is Junior. He's at 12,200 over on DraftKings, and he's going for the three-peat on this track. I love the three-peat. I think he's got a good chance of making it. He underqualified for this race at 20th position, which means he has the ability to move up and gain you a lot of points in pass differential and place differential. Keep in mind, he won the last race on this track in the summer of last year, and in the early summer won the race before that, right? He's going for his third consecutive on this track. I love him this week. He's just super on fire. The second driver we have for you on the Who's Burning Rubber is Lear's pick. And Lear wanted me to tell you about Jeff Gordon today at 11,300. He isn't even here, and the guy is stealing one of my picks. I love it. Love you, Lear. Jeff Gordon qualified 4th this week, and he's owned this track over his career. He has four wins in this race specifically, and 6 wins on the Pocono track in his career. I would look for him to rack up big points and leave a mark in his farewell tour on at Pocono. I think he makes a great play, and his price is just right. And to be honest, Jeff Gordon is the one player I've recommended every week that is paid off and is well worth the money. So I love Jeff Gordon this week. The second, and so does Lear apparently. The second driver I have for you is, I'm going to give you a 2 for here, and I'm going to tell you about the Dillon boys, the Dillon bros. Austin is only 8,900, and Ty is 7,400. I think that these two guys on this track together are going to unite their sibling rivalry and race each other. And what we saw today in practice was that they started racing together and started looking really good together, teaming up. And I think that that's due to happen. I think Big Brother is going to push Little Brother, and Little Brother is going to push Big Brother, who qualified high, and he's going to push him to keep up in the front. And we know when you're in the front of the pack, that always means that you have a chance to lead laps. These guys, they have great cars. They're looking good. It's just a question of whether or not they can downshift and shift up out of those crazy turns, and how they'll race this week. I think the Dillon bros put together on a team will give you a lot of salary cap room to get some of the better drivers. And when I put together my team here in a little bit, you'll see what that freedom allows you to do. And I'm really comfortable with my team this week. Of course, I said that last week and ended up with 4 total points because 3 of my drivers went negative. But with that said, I think this is the week to ride the Dillon boys. Now let's move on to Lear's second pick of Who's Burning Rubber, and that's Kyle Busch at 11,000. He looked good last week until he got caught up into a wreck that was not his fault. He qualified 10th on this track this week. Looks good in practice so far. He has a history of being competitive at Pocono, which is really great. Lear wants me to tell you that this is his stone cold lock of the week. He's guaranteeing that Kyle Busch has a top 5 finish. While I refuse to be that bold, I do love Kyle Busch this week. You know, I was on him last week until the wreck. He was doing great things for us. I like Kyle Busch this week at his price tag at 11,000. Helps round out a nice team for you. Let's go to, now that we've wrapped up the Who's Burning Rubber, let's do our Who's Headed to the Garage segment. These are the drivers that you want to avoid this week. The first pick that I have for you is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Look, he's priced right at 7,900, but in practices, he keeps falling back. He keeps falling off the pace. He qualified well, but look, in my opinion, there are better drivers around him, and you'll see this in Lear and my lineup at that price point that I would rather be on, and I'm sure you would too. It's nothing personal against Stenhouse. I just don't like the way he's running right now in Pocono. The turns seem to be bothering him other than in qualifying. So in other words, when cars are on the track, he doesn't seem to be running as well as what he was without them. I think he'll continue to move back in the field, and I think he overqualified. Lear's pick for us this week as Who's Headed to the Garage is Matt Keselowski. It's simple for Lear. He's overpriced at 11,700. He's struggled the past few races, and even though he qualified 7th on this track, he seems to be falling back at practice. And if you look at his top speeds and his average speeds, he's off the pace from the top drivers. I would avoid Keselowski, and apparently Lear would too. We think that he's headed to the garage this week, and if not headed to the garage, he's definitely headed down the standings, and that's going to cost you points, as we've seen in the scoring system. So now that we got the who's headed to the garage segment wrapped up, let's move along to the actual draft portion of our show, where Lear and I both show you teams that we've put together. We'll start off with Lear's team this time, since he's not here. And his first driver is that of Kyle Busch at 11,000. He's Lear's lock of the week to finish top 5. I also love this play. I think it's a really good one. Lear has really good reasoning behind it, and the price is right. Lear's second pick is a pick you're going to see pop up on my team, and that's Jeff Gordon. Just remember the previous analysis we've given. He's on fire. He's on his farewell tour. He loves this track. He wins at this track constantly. He's a great asset to have this week. The next pick that Lear has for you is Casey Mears at 7,900. Casey qualified 18th and has actually been moving up in practice. His speeds and times keep getting better. I like the Casey Mears play. I'm not personally on him this week, but I get why Lear is, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Lear's fourth pick for you this week is Paul Menard at 8,700. I'll be completely honest. Menard is the one guy that I really wanted to be able to try to fit into my lineup this week. Wasn't able to because of where I spent money elsewhere. There were other drivers I wanted just a little bit more. I have zero problems with Paul Menard. He's got great engine as he's part of the Childers Racing team. They run really well on this track. As you see, I recommended the Dillon boys earlier. Paul Menard is also on that team. I think they're poised to run well here at Pocono, and I think they're going to pay off dividends for you. The last pick of Lear's, if you'll excuse me, I forgot to jot it down, and I'm going to have to go to the phone where he texted me his lineup. And his last pick is, oh yeah, Martin Truex Jr., who he recommended last week, and hit it out of the park. Truex Jr. led 131 laps last week, and racked up massive fantasy points for Lear and all the others that owned him. I told everyone last week that Truex was a fade. I was sorely mistaken, as he was able to come clean through all the wrecks and leading all those laps, still finished with lots of points. The tournament winners all had Truex on their team because of the fact that he led 131 laps. Now, something that we haven't talked about yet for this show, Pocono, with the style of raceway it is, the style of track it is, whoever gets out front traditionally will lead a lot. So you want some of those drivers up in the at least one of those drivers up in the front that you think is going to lead a lot of laps, because as we've seen in NASCAR this season, that is the fastest way to rack up points, just as the fastest way to lose points is to have one of your guys wreck. It's important to be able to find somebody, if you can, that can lead laps, especially on the tracks where they're going to lead a lot of laps. I just wanted to make you aware of that and to talk about that a little bit more. And now that we've got Lear's lineup, which I just love, I think that lineup's solid. I may actually gank it and throw it in a contest myself, make a little adjustment here or there. But it's time to go to my lineup. And my lineup should be no surprise to you. First, I'm going to start off with Jeff Gordon at the 11,300. Both of us love Jeff Gordon this week. I think you should love Jeff Gordon too. That price is exactly right for what he offers you, and week in and week out, he's finishing strong. There's just nothing more to say about a guy that will get you that kind of points on a consistent basis. He's a great play. And to be honest, the field keeps staying away from him, and I don't understand why. My second pick for you, and this is actually my pick for my guy to lead the laps, and you already heard me talk about Earnhardt earlier. I love me some Junior this week. He's at the $12,200 price tag. I think that he and Gordon together are going to be up front. Once Earnhardt moves up to the front, I think that they're going to rack up a lot of points, and Earnhardt just loves running on this track. Now, granted, he's complained about the tunnel turn, but everybody else on the track is complaining about the tunnel turn too. I believe that they're just going to work through it. They're going to race through it, and Earnhardt's going to put his nose to the grindstone and get this race done. The next picks I have for you are the Dillon brothers, and I put both of them on my team. Austin Dillon to 8,900 and Ty at 74. Putting those guys together allowed me to be able to buy Earnhardt and Gordon, and then have another, what I contend to be an elite driver in Clint Bowyer at the 9,200 to round out my team. And Clint Bowyer is one of those guys that also qualified a little bit back. He's been moving up in practice, looking good, running faster every lap. Those are the kind of drivers that I look for and that I think you should look for as well. I think Bowyer's also poised to move. Austin Dillon qualified back in the back of the pack, but he has ran a faster laps every time he's went out in practice. He keeps improving. Every practice he's gained a lot of positions. I love the Austin Dillon play and the Ty Dillon play. Austin qualified up at the front. Ty's the one that qualified near the back. I apologize for that. They're both running well. They both have been practicing on the practice laps. They ran together a couple times. They look really good running together. They've got those awesome Childers racing engines in them. I think that they're poised to have a really good showing this week at Pocono. I'm all over them. So once again, my lineup from top to bottom is Bowyer, Dillon, Earnhardt Jr., and Jeff Gordon to round it out, and I have $1,000 remaining. So you could change that, buy someone else if you like. If you don't like, whatever. But now I want to talk about some cool things that DraftKings is actually doing for NASCAR this week. They have a $9 tournament. And instead of the normal $5, that's the one you're going to see me in. It's part of their $3.6 million Summer Games series, and they're trying to give us a little bit more money in the NASCAR pool. There's also an awesome quarter tournament. That's right, you can try NASCAR out for just 25 cents if you click on the link that we'll provide for you on Facebook and on YouTube, or anywhere on our site for DraftKings on our site, fantasydonks.com. Just click on the DraftKings link, make a deposit, and you can play the 25-cent game just to get a feel for it. It's a lot of fun, and you'll find out if you play even at the quarter level, it will make any sport, especially NASCAR, so much more fun to watch. You'll be so excited. You'll enjoy the sport so much more. I recommend giving it a try. If you want to check out my lineups, I'll just cross-enter the ones that I'm putting in the quarter lineup as well, so you can check those out. Feel free to comment on any of our picks if you like them, don't like them. Feel free to give us feedback. Next week we'll have Lear back. Buddy, I miss you. Get back soon and in one piece. Because I need my wingman on the show. And with all that said, if I or Lear don't take down the money this week, we hope you do. And have a great day and good luck, race fans.